Hi, soldiers. Welcome to Vietnam. Serving in the 173rd Airborne Brigade means living under a heavy burden. But here's your chance to take on the legacy of freedom-fighting heroes from your unit's past. After the Gulf of Tonkin incident, it has become clear that it is here, in Southeast Asia, where the front line in the war on communism has been drawn. As President Johnson once said, "We do not choose to be the guardians at the gate, but there is no one else." The communist offensive in South Vietnam must be stopped, or after the fall of Vietnam, other countries will fall, just like pieces of domino. America remembers the lesson from Munich and will never step down to the dictatorship. You will be fighting with a sinister enemy, leading its so-called war of liberation. But be sure that Viet Cong has nothing to do with liberty. It is all about enslaving the freedom-loving people of South Vietnam and subordinating them to North Vietnamese communists and their masters from Red China. We are superior in weaponry and training. Our cause is just. This will be a very short war. You will be celebrating Christmas back on Okinawa, I guarantee.
Dear Lucas, they are sending us to Dong Nay. Damn, boy, I don't even know how to write it properly. To fight for some hills that, according to Westmoreland and his crew, should be ours and not the Viet Cong's. Don't ask me why. They don't say such things as simple grunts. I have no idea where those hills are, but you can check it in your wise books. The weather here is awful. Every living being, from snake to peasant, wants me dead. The sea rations are literally poisonous, and our M16s are always jammed. We're doing 100 miles on foot, usually through jungle, bearing tons of equipment. So, to answer your question, yes, I miss home. But the boys, I heard before about soldiers' friendship, this special bond brothers in arms bullshit, and always thought it was stupid. But it's all true, brother. I mentioned to you about this white boy from Texas, Michael. In the country, we wouldn't even talk to each other. But in Vietnam, I would like you to meet him one day. Gotta finish. How are your grades? And how's Ma? Tell her I love her. Yours, Marlon.
Dear brother, survive. This war ain't gonna last long. Maybe the majority is still buying LBJ's bullshit, but every day, more and more people are questioning the news, especially black brothers. We organize anti-war demonstrations every week, pressing those DC pricks against the wall. Sometimes things go really crazy. Have you heard about this man who set himself on fire in November? You know, like one of those Vietnamese monks. And now people are saying that World War II veterans will be giving back their medals as a sign of protest. Things are pretty hot down here, though surely not as hot as where you are. Survive. We will end this war for you. By the way, don't ask me about college anymore. Got expelled. Our demonstration was attacked by some rednecks who decided to throw balloons with paint at us. But of course, police stepped in only after I hit one of them with a peace sign. Guess how many black cops were securing the demonstration? College authorities put me in kangaroo court for breaking the school statute. Guess how many black teachers were sitting in this court? Fuck it. Now I have more time for things that are really important, like fighting for our rights and against this war. Survive. Please. Yours, Lucas.
Dear Mimi, I miss you so much. I cannot write about it though, because my stupid sister is lurking over my shoulder. Say hi to Susan. We are alright, of course. It's so stupid to write that we are alright. After all, it's you who's at war. Are you alright then? Dad says you'll be back soon. What with the Senate pushing Mr. President to win the war, or bring our boys home. Dad is constantly angry about those, as he calls them, liberal Reds. But I think that maybe them and their protests will actually help me see you sooner. But apart from that, Dad's right, of course. I can't listen to the news and all those wise guys from Black Panthers and CNCC talking nonsense about their love for the simple folk of North Vietnam. I'm curious if Mr. Clay would be so smart if you surrendered tomorrow and commies knocked on his door to delegalize this Islam of his. Does he even know that commies hate all religions? I've been listening to the mamas and the papas all day long. I think they're way better than the Beatles. But when I'm thinking about you, I like to turn on Sound of Silence. Could you listen to it one evening? Who knows? Maybe we'll be listening to the same song at the same time, thinking about one another on opposite sides of the world. I'm sending you my picture, just like you asked. I look awful, so please don't show it to your buddies. I really do miss you, Mimi. Yours, Luann.
In January 1966, Private Tomashevich's helicopter was shot down over a dense forest. He was dragged out of the burning machine by the locals and severely beaten. Then he was handed to the VC. He was held in enemy captivity for 5 months. Private Tomashevich and his kidnappers lived in the jungle, and in order to avoid U.S. and ARVN patrols, they changed their location very often. During the time of his captivity, Private Tomashevich was beaten, starved, and tortured on a daily basis. One time, he was beaten so badly that his left shoulder popped out of its socket and his arm turned back. Another time, he was nearly beaten to death with a bamboo stick. His wrists were almost always handcuffed tight, to the point where metal dug into his skin. More than once, his captors hung him from a tree by his wrists. Starvation was also used as a form of torture. Private Tomasevich and his fellow prisoners were given only small doses of rice and watery soup, often with human feces and pebbles. Prisoners were not allowed to sleep most days. When they were allowed, they were forced to sleep in their own excrement. During a medical treatment applied after rescuing Private Tomashevich, the U.S. Army doctors had to amputate his left arm. He has been moved to the U.S. and honorably discharged. Captain Jacob Mills.
One could argue that I know nothing about the Vietnam War, that I'm just another self-concerned journo who thinks he's an expert just because he spent a couple of weeks in the jungle interviewing the troops and watching them comb the forest. One would be right about that, but I know what I saw. I saw young men whose morale is sinking. They're tired beyond measure, way more than they ever thought their bodies could handle. Too cynical for their young age. Rain-soaked and dirty, chewed on by tropical bugs, armed with unreliable rifles and dressed in ill-assorted uniforms. Homesick, moody, haggard, vulgar, making cruel and outrageous jokes about the atrocities of war and their fallen friends on a daily basis. I met Lieutenant Kovacs of Alpha Platoon, a 20-year-old with the stare of an old man. A boy who came to Vietnam with a photo of his high school sweetheart and a head full of JFK quotes. Despite his growing disappointment, he just enlisted for a second tour because he still has some business to attend to here. I also met his friend Lieutenant Coleman of Bravo Platoon, a Howard University graduate and one of the smartest men I've ever met. Coleman likes to cite Martin Luther King, yet spends most of his free time with Candy Johnson, a Green Beret, decorated hero and a racist so gross that even the Grand Wizard of the KKK would blush under his hood. I met Billy, sometimes called crazy, an insecure boy from Florida hiding his fears behind a mad bully mask. Kendrick, one of the few who knew the local language well enough to understand all the insults being thrown at him. And the smooth-tongued Scotty McGuire, who enrolled just for the money. He wants to start an Irish bar on the outskirts of Queens. I didn't meet Donaldson, a boy from Mississippi. I did not make it in time. He stepped on a mine and died.
Christ, Coleman, you scared the shit out of me. You're not hanging out with your Green Beret bros?
Hell no. I hate it when those crackheads are high. Those are some crazy hombres, even without the dope.
I hear you.
So, Miss Ling Ming is expecting?
Yeah, she is.
What are you gonna do?
Absolutely fucking nothing. I ain't gonna ruin my life just because she's pregnant. I like her, but... Christ, Marlon. I'm 21. I have a life to live and a girl waiting for me back home. A nice white Texan family that doesn't know a word of Vietnamese.
So, you're going back to your white princess?
Don't call her that. And yeah, at least I'll try.
Don't get your hopes up. She's waiting for the same naive motherfucker that went to fight the bad commies. That motherfucker just ain't you anymore.
True that. But I do want to live a little, you know? I'm 21 and have slept with just 2 girls. One of them wants to be my wife and the other one will have my baby. Have you heard what's happening back there in the country? My cousin wrote me lately. Those hippie girls.
Their music's good, that's for sure. So, you want to be a hippie as well?
You've got a better plan?
Well, I'm putting my life on the line for the government that put my brother behind bars. So, I guess I'll finish fighting in Nam and do some more fighting in the States. I'm thinking about joining the Black Panthers.
Good. That Uncle Sam trained you well then.
Fuck yeah.
The committee states that given the circumstances and with available intel, there was no chance to predict enemy movement. Therefore, the commander responsible for the mission cannot be blamed for heavy losses sustained by Baker Company. Nonetheless, the tragic fate of Alpha Platoon should be a lesson for all of us. The annihilation of Alpha Platoon was an especially heavy blow for Lieutenant Marlon Coleman of Bravo Platoon. Interviews gathered by the committee suggest that Lieutenant Coleman and Lieutenant Kovacs maintained very close relations. After Lieutenant Kovacs' death, Lieutenant Coleman's behavior has changed. His actions became aggressive, even violent. He is unwilling to cooperate with our allies from the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, blaming them for the tragic fate of Alpha Platoon. One of the interviewed soldiers suggested that Lieutenant Coleman may be addicted to illicit substances, but the committee did not find further evidence to corroborate that, so there are no grounds for an investigation. It should be noted that up to this point, Lieutenant Coleman had an exemplary service record and had been decorated on multiple occasions. Additionally, soldiers serving under his command hold him in high regard. Removing such an experienced commander would significantly weaken Baker Company. This is especially true after the death of the equally experienced Lieutenant Kovacs. It is worth noting that gathered intel suggests there are some serious morale issues within Baker Company. A lot of their troops are embittered and aggressive, just like Lieutenant Coleman. Some, especially those from Bravo Platoon, are openly criticizing the war and decisions made by the high command. Some interviews also suggest that fistfights between soldiers are a daily occurrence. Use of drugs is also persistent at Baker Company. The committee recommends sending Lieutenant Coleman, Corporal Morris, and Private Carter for a few weeks' vacation. At the same time, the committee is fully aware that these recommendations may be difficult to implement given the circumstances.
Is this shit on? Fuck, Mr. Press. I shouldn't even be talking to you. The boys. Hell if I know what they would do to me if they found out. That's right. We marched into a village. Just like that. We've marched into hundreds of villages before this one, and each and every one of them looked the same. Identical huts. Identical rice fields. Identical stupid-ass Papa Sands bound before you like you're Lyndon fucking Johnson himself. You know what's different this time? We're right after Kovac's death. Right after Alpha's annihilation. We're all pumped up, filled with all the fucking rage in the world. And boom, there it is. A cache full of old, dusty, yet still operable AK-47s. Just like that. Yeah, of course those slowpads couldn't have stacked those rifles for themselves. I'd say hiding a gun while trapped between the Kong and us seemed like a reasonable thing to do. But we were in no mood for reason. It's not really a popular concept among Uncle Sam's grunts anyway. So, we're in the village, reporting about the guns we found. And suddenly, a fight breaks out. Billy and Carter are beating the shit out of some gook. Fuck if I know why. And there's his yellow wife, or mother. She's right there next to him, sobbing like a wounded deer. And Billy shot her. Just like that. And suddenly, everything's easy. The gooks are running in panic, and we're wasting them. Men, women, kids, no difference. 58 corpses in 28 minutes. Like it was nothing. I won't answer that. You're the Jono here. Do your job. But I can tell you one thing. I should have stopped it. That was my job. But I was too fucking angry. Too fucking scared. I could sell you a fairy tale about the goddamn war machine that threw us into the jungle and turned us into fucking animals. Or how the Vietnamese hell changed pure American boys into baby killers. And it'd be true. But there's also another truth. No one ordered Bravo to massacre the village. No one put a gun to my head. I stood there, watched, and did nothing. Papa Bear? He's okay. Always looking out for us and all. But I doubt he knows what happened. To be honest, I doubt he even knows one true thing about the war. Hiding in his tent with a radio and map. That's not the Nam. At least not my Nam. Sounds more like some kind of game.